It is spring in Washington, D.C., one of the most beautiful times of year, as it is in Connecticut and around the country. We've endured a tough winter in the Northeast, a lot of snow, a lot of cold, and now a lot of potholes all around the country. Spring means potholes, which are endemic not only to the Northeast, but to our roads all around America. Potholes are just the latest reminder of infrastructure challenges facing our nation. And that's just one reason why this week is, in fact, Infrastructure Week, a time when we should be focusing on rail and roads, the decaying and aging infrastructure that bedevils and hobbles our nation as we seek to compete globally, and our businesses in Connecticut seeking to compete nationally as well as globally. This time of year is also the beginning of the construction season, especially in the colder regions of the country like the Northeast and Iowa and Nebraska and the Midwest. In Connecticut, construction workers are ready to go, ready to take advantage of this chance to address our aging and decaying transportation assets. I know that trade is on our agenda this week. I urge and implore that trade be set aside, that the trade bill be delayed, not forever by any means, but as the leader of our caucus has urged, as Leader Harry Reid has implored, that we focus on infrastructure. We face a deadline. May marks the last month of MAP 21, the law governing surface transportation funding. On May 31, just 20 days from now, the authorization governing our Highway Trust Fund will expire. That's right, there's a cliff. It's a highway cliff that we are just days away from going over. This nation will go over that cliff unless we act, and now is the moment. Now is the time. Now is our opportunity, and it is an opportunity that will not excuse us from action. 2014 was a record year for auto safety, auto recalls, auto problems and issues. And so part of what needs to be done in addressing the expiration of MAP 21 is to make safety a priority, but it can't be achieved if we don't address the fundamental challenges of our aging infrastructure. Fundamental reforms are needed at NHTSA and other safety watchdogs to make sure that our constituents are safe. So you'd think now would be a time to discuss legislation that will fix our streets and stop potholes from imperiling our drivers and put construction workers back on the job, providing a lifeline to nearly 2 million Americans who have jobs directly tied to the transportation sector. You'd think we'd want to cut down on unemployment. And in the construction sector, unfortunately, joblessness remains at a 10% level. And you'd think also now's the time, and we should be advancing a multi-year, long-term bill that would provide certainty to states and municipalities so they can plan for long-term projects. You think now is the time to take a hard look at our safety oversight agencies, NHTSA, the FRA, the Federal Highway Administration, and make fundamental reforms and increase the tools that they have and the fines and penalties they can exact to protect all who rely on our transportation network. But the approach of this Congress, unfortunately, is going to be, as engineers say, patch and pray. Patch the potholes, patch the roads, patch the railroads, even when the tracks are cracked, even when the ballasts are failing. Patch the bridges, patch and pray. We are about to become a nation of patch and pray when it comes to decaying, deficient roads, bridges, railroads, all of the vital nuts and bolts, literally, that transport our nation. And how ironic, at this moment, when it's spring, when the construction industry is about to revive in the opportunities it has to put people back to work, and when many of us in this chamber and others at school commencements will be talking about the big ideas, the big challenges, the big dreams and hopes that our graduates have for the future, that we are thinking small. We're thinking about patching our highway transit fund for months, maybe to the end of the year. A nation that patches and pray cannot be exceptional. It cannot be a great nation when it comes to shortchanging investment in the vital facilities, in the nuts and bolts, in the roads and bridges that make it a national competitor. And this kind of short-term extension of a highway and transit system fails to match the challenges that our nation faces. We spend less and invest less as a percentage of our gross domestic product than many other industrialized nations. Europe and China spend far more as a percentage of their gross domestic product than we do. So I call on the leadership, my good friends and colleagues on the other side of the aisle, to make infrastructure our priority for this week, as it should be for this decade. Because within this decade, according to some projections, 1 in 4 of our bridges will be 65 years or older, making them even more prone to decay and disrepair. The consequences are real and costly. Bridges that collapse, like the 50-year-old Skagit Bridge, River Bridge in Washington. The bridge collapsed, sending cars into the river below. That wasn't a remote bridge. It was over Interstate 5, a major United States artery on the West Coast. Of course, we all remember the 2007 bridge collapse in Minneapolis. We remember the Mianus River Bridge collapse in Connecticut. We remember the Bridgeport derailment due to decayed, cracking tracks, improperly repaired. Remember Skyton Dival, where lives were lost because of a derailment and the failure to invest in train communication and signaling that could have prevented that tragedy. And we remember the railroad grade crossings, where insufficient investment in modern technology causes deaths all around the country, hundreds of them every year, not to mention billions of dollars due to these collisions, derailments, crashes on the roads, costing lives and imperiling our nation's future. A short-term patch robs our states and municipalities of certainty they need to contract that is essential to construction at the lowest possible cost in the most efficient way. Certainty and reliability in funding are essential to our municipalities, knowing what their resources will be, not just for this year, but into the future, and driving the best bargain they can with contractors and subcontractors. And it's not just because of our rebuilding needs that we need this investment. There are also many other significant related issues that we must address to keep our roads and rails safer and reliable. We need to ensure that trucks on our road aren't too big, that truck drivers have enough rest, that our railroads are properly overseen, that positive train control is implemented, that testing for physical and emotional health is done regularly and reliably. And the long list of NTSB recommendations need to be finally addressed and implemented. We're at a time when we're talking to young men and women as they graduate from school about those big ideas and about their futures and dreams. When we invoke what is best and brightest about America, our foresight, our strength, our courage to take risks, to invest in ourselves and our futures. It's the same spirit that led to the building of the Erie Canal and the Transcontinental Railroad and the interstate highway system. Those initiatives were not about party or partisan initiatives. The greatest generation came back from World War II and built the interstate highway under the leadership of President Dwight Eisenhower. He committed to make America one nation in its roads, tying us together, binding us as a nation through that investment. And he had the courage, as we should today, to say what's great about America is what we give back, what we're willing to invest not only for today but for tomorrow. And we are in danger today in this chamber, in this nation, of being one of the first generations that left a lesser America for our children. Think of it. A lesser America at a time when the word exceptional and exceptionalism trips off the tongues of many of our colleagues here in this chamber. We need to match that rhetoric with real action. And so today, let us resolve that we will debate and act on a long-term investment program to make sure that our roads and bridges, our railroads and airports, the ports that could make our nation the envy of the world, are matching our rhetoric and our goals, that they truly make us competitive for businesses in Connecticut and around the nation, competitive on a global scene where that competition has never been tougher and where our infrastructure has to be better. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor. I suggest the absence of a quorum.